Yo, welcome everyone. Happy Hump Day. This is Bruce the Boss Brooks. Want to welcome you to my channel. And in the era of big tech censorship, which is one of the topics of today's video, please don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell so you can get notified of the latest content. Like this video, share this video. Please comment on this video to again beat the algorithm censorship that is going on amongst YouTube and Google. Let's roll. All right, y'all. So, in an effort to control the narrative and what's being pushed in the media, which is technically factual in terms of what we know so far, YouTube has made a major announcement starting today, Wednesday, December the 9th, 2020. To the major bombshell for today, in another attempt to really control the narrative and what it is you're able to see, YouTube has just decided, today's date, Wednesday, December the 9th, 2020, to remove content that alleges widespread voter fraud in the 2020 election. YouTube will remove videos and content that allege widespread voter fraud, keyword being widespread, in the 2020 presidential election starting Wednesday. Wednesday was the country's safe harbor deadline, or the deadline by which state-level election audits and recounts are supposed to be completed, quote unquote. Given that we will start removing any piece of content uploaded today that misleads people by alleging that widespread fraud or errors change the outcome of the 2020 U.S. presidential election in line with our approach towards historical U.S. presidential elections, end quote, that they wrote in the blog. Videos claiming President Trump or any other candidate besides President-elect Joe Biden won the 2020 election, quote, due to widespread software glitches or counting errors, for example, will be removed starting Wednesday. And YouTube will allow news covering, and here, this is important because I guess this is I guess you can say an exception to the rule. YouTube will allow news covering issues related to the 2020 election so long as there is, quote, sufficient education, documentary, scientific, or artistic content, end quote. Because our main goal going into the election season was always to make sure that we're connecting people with authoritative information while also limiting the reach of misinformation and removing harmful content. The work here is ongoing, and we just wanted to provide an update, end quote, says YouTube. So now that we know what the guidelines are of what YouTube is saying is allowed to be official content being placed on their platform, acting as a publisher, let's now stay within that guideline and reveal factual, developing information as it pertains to the election. So here we go. If you didn't hear about the lawsuit being filed by Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton. Now, I'm going to assume that Newsweek is considered a credible and reputable news source. So I'm going to use their website here. If you didn't already know, yesterday, Tuesday, December the 8th, Texas filed a lawsuit to the Supreme Court. And when one state sues another state, it can go directly to the Supreme Court. You need not even have to worry about getting denied and or filing applications in the lower circuit courts, getting denied and then appealing to the Supreme Court. You just go straight to the Supreme Court. And apparently several other states want to join in. They include Alabama and Louisiana. So according to this, the attorneys general of Alabama and Louisiana have expressed interest in possibly joining a lawsuit filed by Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton to have the Supreme Court invalidate election results in 4 key battleground states, that being the contested states in which we heard some hearings in, of Georgia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. The suit seeks to have each state's lawmakers decide their electors rather than having the electors reflect the will of the voting citizens. They state, and I quote, according to the Attorney General, Steve Marshall of Alabama, and I quote, the unconstitutional actions and fraudulent votes in other states not only affect the citizens of those states, they affect the citizens of all states of the entire United States, end quote. Now, let me get ready to show you the Texas lawsuit. You already have Washington Post saying that their lawsuit won't go anywhere. Whatever. All right, so we already see where they're coming at it. All right, so Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton filed a lawsuit. This was on Tuesday, December 8th, 2020, against, Georgia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin in the United States Supreme Court, stating that those states exploited the COVID-19 pandemic to justify ignoring federal and their own state election laws and unlawfully enacting last-minute changes, thus skewing the results of the 2020 general election. The battleground states flooded their people with unlawful ballot applications and ballots while ignoring statutory requirements as to how they were received, evaluated, and therefore counted. And then he went on to go and quote, "Trust in the integrity of our election process is sacrosanct and binds our citizenry and the states and the union together. Georgia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin destroyed that trust and compromised the security and integrity of the 2020 election. The states violated statutes enacted by their duly elected legislatures, thereby violating the Constitution. By ignoring both state and federal law, these states have not only tainted the integrity of their own citizens' vote, but of Texas and every other state that held lawful elections," end quote, said Attorney General Paxton. And I continue, quote, "Their failure to abide by the rule of law casts a dark shadow of doubt over the outcome of the entire election. We now ask that the Supreme Court step in to correct this egregious error," end quote. And this is what is being challenged by the state of Texas's Attorney General Paxton. Now, apparently there are additional states in it, that just came within the minutes since I did this video. I'll go down the list of all of those states. So it's not just Texas. You have Missouri, Alabama, Arkansas, Florida, Indiana, Kansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Montana, Nebraska, North Dakota, Oklahoma, South Carolina, South Dakota, Tennessee, Utah, and West Virginia. That's 17 states in all that is suing and taking their case to the Supreme Court. So 16 additional states have joined the fight with the state of Texas within just the last hour to sue over the election results. So again, essentially the case that they're making that many platforms, whether it be YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and the mainstream media is trying to ignore is that now we've had hearings over the last week and a half. We had one in Pennsylvania, we had one in Arizona, had a hearing in Michigan, and then the most recent one was in Georgia, I believe. And then, yes, I believe that's the case. Nevada, there was a hearing as well, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comment section. And essentially what we heard in all of these hearings were sworn affidavit testimonies from witnesses, experts, as well as video evidence being presented. If you're not familiar with what an affidavit is, before anyone just says, well, these are baseless and or unsubstantiated claims, an affidavit is essentially, I guess this is going to count as educational, an affidavit is a sworn legal document that's treated no differently than you literally being in a courtroom, swearing under oath to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And if any part of your testimony has been proven to be knowingly false, you are held under the penalties of perjury, which can speak for the state of Michigan, comes with a mandatory 10-year prison sentence. Yes, some will say, well, they rarely ever prosecute for perjury, but bottom line is, you can be charged. That is a risk you're taking to be proven wrong. So we've heard sworn testimony of individuals making statements of what they saw with their own eyes. An affidavit is considered, yes, evidence. And in some of those affidavits, it included the following. Speaking of from Pennsylvania, I believe one of the witnesses said that there were USBs missing, indicating that, which had over 44,000 votes that they can no longer account for. You had affidavits stating that in the Michigan hearing, as I recall, there was an independent audit in Wayne County out of the 172,000 votes that were cast in that particular area, they were only able to do an independent audit, not a state-run audit, but an independent audit by this particular watchdog group or voter watch group. They did an independent audit of only 30,000 out of the 172,000 and found over 229 dead individuals having voted in the ballot. Dead individuals on voting ballots. They had over 2,660 residents on the ballots that had addresses that were essentially, when checked, vacant lots or burnt down buildings. That represents about 8.9% of the ballots that they were able to collect in that small sample. And then you had a similar situation in Arizona where they got a small sample size of 100 ballots and found irregularities in, about a little over 3% of those, which allowed them to expand a small audit. All right, so that, and then in Georgia, we had video evidence supporting the testimony of the complainants being brought to the Georgia session. And despite the fact that they tried to bring election officials from the state of Georgia to state, oh, no, they not only were they not sent home, but they had a monitor there the whole time to ensure nothing was happening, no voting was counted. And just when you had representatives like Representative Parent, I believe her name is Ella Parent, trying to say, well, what do you say about the testimony of the state election officials that came on just an hour before you that debunked what you're trying to say? They responded, they didn't see the video. I just showed you video. It was funny, like there was actual video evidence that was not presented and or available prior to that testimony last week. So they keep saying debunked. They've never actually debunked anything. There was nothing that was stated that was either brought by an individual who has a signed affidavit putting them under the penalty of perjury if they're shown false. There's been no video evidence supporting any claims made to the contrary. There has not been any audits. There have been a few recounts, but when you recount, you're just recounting the same ballots and not actually examining them either for signature verification and or verifying if they're still alive or verifying if the address or information is correct. They have not done a single audit on a state level or county level in any of these states to say to the contrary. They're just saying, this is the outcome, accept it. We're not going to verify or look into how we came to these conclusions and or these results. Just accept it. I don't care about the evidence that you're bringing forward. We're not going to even bother trying to prove it wrong. We're just going to say it so, and you're going to take our word for it. Well, these attorney generals in these states, 17 states in all, you can't ignore that. Cannot ignore that. They're saying we heard the evidence from these hearings. And while these states, Georgia, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, are choosing to turn the other cheek, look the other way, and not actually do an audit of this information, of this evidence, they're just going to hear the evidence, maybe consider a special session, but otherwise just continue on. They're saying, no, this does not look right. You have not, and this is the case that the attorney generals are currently making, including Ken Paxton of Texas. They're saying, we've heard the evidence from these complainants. We've heard their testimony, which again is a sworn affidavit, putting them under the penalty of perjury if proven wrong. We've heard their evidence presented. We saw the video that they are trying to say, what you see, you didn't actually see. And instead of saying, you know what, let us investigate it, let us look into it further, let us do an actual audit to see what it is you're saying and to prove one way or another. We're going to run an audit because we have nothing to hide. If we are confident in the results and that this was truly secure, the audit will prove that. Not a recount, but an audit. Because again, I'll repeat for if you missed it, all a recount will do is, oh, Brenda Walsh, check. Dylan McKay, check. And you're not actually looking to see, is this a real name or is this a fictional character? Is this address real? Oh, I'm just going to count it on a bunch. That's all a recount is. An audit would actually examine how we came about that, whether or not if the claims of ballots being put in multiple times actually occurred that will be caught in an audit. None of that was done, even though we have passed the certification deadline, so to speak, or the safe harbor time. There was no audit done, essentially, not by the state and or county areas. There were, again, independent audits done by the Trump administration and or the Trump legal team and or those who are working with, not for, but with the Trump legal team. There were independent audits that were never investigated further. And so you have a lot of people looking at this and saying, this does not look right. This looks tainted. We are challenging taking it to the Supreme Court. That's where we're at right now. So that's my video. I've kept it factual. I kept it to the point. What the argument is being made right so far. Every piece of evidence and or statement I made is backed by the evidence of the sworn affidavit. I've explained what an affidavit is. So this video should not be censored and or removed. We'll see. So assuming that it's still here, and this is crazy that we're living in these times where they're saying, listen to what we're telling you. We don't have to prove what we're saying is true. We don't have to counter your evidence. We just have to say it, and it's so. That's the time we're really living in right now. Again, I am not saying that there was widespread fraud, because there's no evidence of that. But there is evidence of irregularities in pocket places, really only in these 4 swing states, or should I say, not just those 4 swing states, also Arizona, which is not on their on their list of states that they're challenging. But I do think Arizona could be added onto that list based upon the hearing investigation that they had. But there are some irregularities in these pocket places, so not widespread, but in those specific hearings that were had, we found irregularities that don't present widespread, but can change outcomes and or call into question that deserves an investigation. That's where we're at. So if you are seeing it to this point, I'm assuming that YouTube has not removed it. Let's just help beat the algorithm, help fight the censorship and the narrative. Let them know put the facts out there. We'll put the facts that can be seen, reviewed, and let the chips fall where they may. We're grown adults. We can decide for ourselves, think for ourselves, research for ourselves. Ignorance is still a choice, but they're trying to make it to the point where it's no longer a choice. But we're living in an information age where you can still find this information. You just have to now work that much harder. That's what I'm working on doing. If you like what I'm presenting as far as content, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. If you have not yet subscribed, like this video, share this video, comment on this video. This is Bruce the Boss Brooks, and I'm out. Peace.